Hello everyone. I wanted to talk about and demo some exciting new functionality in SuccessFactors payroll, and that's off-cycle payroll, or the ability to pay people outside of their normal payroll. So this is functionality that I know many customers have been asking about and kind of want to see what the process looks like. So in order to demo this process, I hired two employees in my system, and I'll show you one of these employees. So I'm going to view their employment information so we can get a little bit about information about this employee. So I don't have the people profile user interface turned on. So you'll see that, but the data would be the same regardless. You can see here that I hired this employee effective the beginning of this year, 1/1/2017. If I scroll down, I can see the compensation information for this employee, including what pay group or payroll area they're in. This is a monthly payroll, so that we have set up in this system. I can also see that this employee is getting a compensation amount of $25 an hour. If I scroll down, so far this employee doesn't have any spot bonuses, so they haven't been paid any additional payments outside of their regular $25 an hour. For this employee, in order to showcase this, I have run the first payroll or the January payroll since this is monthly, and I can view this person's salary statement or pay statement to see that. So I can see this is for 1/1/2017 to 1/31/2017. So you can see the $25 an hour, and then these are the number of hours that this employee has for both the regular working time as well as holiday pay. You can see that this employee has some different taxes come out, and they're getting a payment in the form of a check. So this is what they have in their payroll results so far. They've only had one payroll run on them. So I've showed this one employee, but I do have two employees that I've hired. So I'm switching over my tabs to this ad hoc report that I created and ran showing the two employees. In this case, I filtered by the pay group in order to show the two that are in my pay group or my payroll area. So this is pretty common if you were trying to pay a group of people off cycle, you might want to run a report to identify these people. And so you could do that with the ad hoc report functionality. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load a bonus payment or an off-cycle payment for these two employees. So I can do that in mass using a tool. And I'm switching over to my third tab here. It's for import employee data. So normally you would download a blank CSV template for a pay component non-recurring or a one-time payment, which is what I'm trying to do here. So you download this template and then fill it out with the information of the employees that you want to load. And this is a tool that SuccessFactors delivers within Employee Central. So I've already downloaded this and filled it out. In this case, I have two employees, my hourly and my salary employee, that I'm going to give a bonus of $5,000 to on February 1st, 2017. So right after their January payroll, they're going to get a bonus on February 1st. So I can close this up. If I just had two employees, I could always go and manually create the information in their employee record, but wanted to show the process and what this looks like doing it in batch. So I'm going to scroll down to the pay component non-recurring, and I'll select full purge. As we saw in the previous screen, my employee doesn't have any spot bonuses or any data there, so it doesn't make a difference if I do full purge or incremental load. Normally I'd validate this, but I've already tested it and made sure it works, so I'm just going to import the data directly into the system. So now if I look, it tells me that two records were updated successfully. So I can come back to my employee and make sure that now it's in the system. So if I go back to the employment information, I can come over here and scroll down to the spot bonuses, and now you can see that record, February 1st, 2017, that it's there, and the amount is $5,000. So I can see that it was run successfully, and that the data is here now. So the next thing I'd want to do is actually go and run this process. So I can hit the drop down here, go over to payroll. And if I look, I can see that in upcoming processes, I have a February 1st, 2017 mass off-cycle payroll. And this is linked to my group 26 payroll area or pay group that I have here. And the reason it knew that I wanted to do it on February 1st, 2017 is in this manage processes user interface, I entered that. So in this process for off-cycle mass payroll, I went in and put in that I want to run a mass payroll for February 1st. And then if I wanted to do another one in March, April, I could update this and add those here, and that would come and be available for me in the My Processes section. And so this is the process for running the payroll. And then this is the process for the post-payroll processing steps. So this would be sending the results to finance, creating the direct deposit or printing the check, that sort of thing. And these are set up here, and then you can come in and update the attributes of these, such as the different off-cycle pay dates. So if I go back over to the My Processes and click this upcoming process, when I'm ready to run this, I can click this Start Process. And what that's going to do is that's going to move this from upcoming to active processes. So if I click over to the active process, I can see that this is a process that has 4 steps. And I can refresh this here. And then I can drill into it to see more details about this. So my 4 steps are to run my payroll off cycle. The second step is to do a posting simulation. So that's always the best practice to make sure that there's no errors when you run this. And then we have the initiate policies and monitoring to take a look and audit the data that's calculated here. So I'm going to click the start button here to start my off-cycle payroll. And then you can see that the step is now in execution. So I'll let this run and give this a moment. Can see that this process has finished successfully, so I can move on to the next process of running a posting simulation here. And so I do have to confirm this process, and I can enter any notes here and click OK. So once I do that, then we can move on to the posting simulation to make sure that everything looks good with our results for when we're sending this to finance. So you can see that this process started automatically. So that's based upon configuration that this started automatically. So now I'll let this go ahead and run. And you can see that it went ahead and finished. So I could look at the details of this and make sure that there's no errors. And if I wanted to log into the back-end system and take a look at the actual details of this, I could do that as well. So once I'm ready, this does tell me that I have to click the confirm button so I can enter any notes in here and click OK. And now we'll move on to the next part where we will take the results of our off-cycle payroll and compare that to the different alerts, policies, and KPIs that we have in our system that are set up. I can go ahead and hit the start button. And then this will run. So it's going to take the results of my payroll and compare those to the different policies that I have set up. So those policies were set up within this manage policies, and these are going to be things that I want my payroll team alerted to. So if I want my payroll team alerted to a particular scenario happening, once this is finished, you can see that the initiate policies is finished successfully. So I can hit the confirm button to move on to my last step. And in the last step, I can actually have a user interface. It's the monitoring step. So I can click here, click start. And this is really the user interface to look into any alerts or KPIs that have come up from my off-cycle payroll. In this case, I have 2. And then I also have a KPI showing the pie chart of how many employees I have off-cycle. So I can see that 2 were picked up. I do have a couple of alerts here, and basically what I did is I set up a rule in my system that said alert me anytime someone has a off-cycle payment over $1,000. So in this case, my 2 employees showed up here, and those are what I set up in the Manage Policies user interface, and I tied it to my process in the Manage Processes user interface. So I'm not going to look into that right now because I know exactly how much I did, but keep in mind this is a great tool for you to be able to build your own payroll alerts and identify scenarios that you want to be notified of. So when I'm done with this, I can then hit the confirm button and click OK. So now I've run my off-cycle payroll here, and if I hit back, you can see that it is now a completed process. What I would do in a production system, and I have already set up, is then I would run my post-payroll processes. So that's going to be printing any checks, creating the files for direct deposit, sending it to the bank, all those things that we need to do in order to actually pay our employee. But for me, for the purposes of payroll and seeing this, the next thing I want to do is I want to go and take a look at my employee and look at their pay statement. So I'm going to navigate over to my employee. I'll go to their payroll, and then I'll go to their pay statement. And now you can see that the pay date is February 1st, and it's specifically for the February 1st payroll that I ran. The gross amount is $5,000, which is the amount that I entered, and I called it annual off-cycle bonus. Taxes were taken out, and the employee is going to get a check for the amount of $3,067.50. So that's the process for running a mass off-cycle payroll using SuccessFactors.